So, just a quick logistical comment. When we're finished with Jill's talk, we'll take a break. I will be the timekeeper. I'll let you know how much time you have, and I'll ask you to come back as quickly as possible. From a conversation about the Great Historical Museum to the exhibitions at MoMA, we now move to something else. And I was very keen to have Jill Shaw participate in this morning's session because she represents an important new beginning. I will let her tell you about it. And I also found it fascinating that a formally trained curator, an art historian, would, with great fluidity, move into the ranks of the technology world. She received an MA in art history and anthropology from the University of Chicago in 2002, writing a thesis entitled Dislocating the Self, Notions of Hybridity in the Art Collection of Kalali Bay, then a PhD from the University of Chicago in 2013, writing on Jean Dubuffet. She was hired by the Art Institute of Chicago in 2002 as a research institute, also moving through the ranks from research assistant in the Department of Medieval to Modern Painting and Sculpture in 2005 to research associate in the same department in 2009. But her current work is quite unusual. It is on the OSCI, the Online Scholarly Catalog Initiative. It is indicative of how, as I said, a formally trained curator and art historian moves into the contemporary museum world of digital technology. Today she's going to talk about that project focusing on Monet.
Good morning, and thank you, Nina, for the introduction and for inviting me to participate in the symposium. I hope Paolo will forgive me for giving you this necessary forced dose of Monet today. I will be speaking about a project that is near and dear to me and that I've been working on at the Art Institute since 2008. It's the Online Scholarly Catalog Initiative, which I'm going to be referring to as OSCI. And it was a project that I never expected to work on at the Art Institute for creating a digital prototype for a scholarly online book. It seemed way outside of the parameters of my expertise as an art historian. As a research associate in a curatorial department at the museum, I spend lots of time in the library with printed books and in archives with printed materials. And it was for this very reason that it was critical for me to play a fundamental role in our concept of a digital scholarly catalog. In order for us to present a product that was successful, it needed to be a source that scholars like me would use and cite as an authoritative source. As I'll talk with you about today, we dug deep into questions about what a scholarly digital catalog or book should be, always keeping in mind our intended audience. We have faced and will continue to face many successes and challenges during our digital publishing project. Just as you all here at Barr Graduate Center are reflecting on your past and future, preparing this talk also provided me the chance to reflect on our own project's trajectory and its potential. Now that I've transitioned into the phase where I'm focusing more on writing curatorial entries for the catalog, as opposed to helping develop the software to present these entries, this was an invigorating reminder of why this project is so important. So thank you for this opportunity. So first I want to give you a little background to OSCI. This is a Getty Foundation-funded initiative that was instigated to address the fate of museum scholarly catalogs. A critical part of many museums' missions, these kinds of publications present up-to-date art historical and scientific studies of objects in our permanent collection. They're very expensive to produce and to buy, they have very low print runs, and therefore very limited circulation, and of course their potential content is much greater than the space on the printed page permits. The Getty Foundation launched OSCI in 2009 in partnership with the J. Paul Getty Museum, and 8 other museums were challenged to create individual prototypes for an online scholarly catalog as an alternative to the printed form. All of the institutions came together intermittently to discuss results, but part of the initiative was for us to work independently to see what kinds of different needs institutions might come up with as for their own digital catalog. The Getty was interested in having each museum explore sustainable and replicable models, as well as assessing how digital publishing might impact institutional structures. Our grant began with a 2-year planning period, followed by a 3-year implementation phase, which ends in June of next year, when we will publish the museum's first 2 online scholarly catalogs using the prototype we developed, the volumes on our Monet and Renoir paintings and sculpture. And drawings. So at the beginning of our project, our core team at the Art Institute included the individuals listed at left. We were from multiple departments at the museum, but especially from the curatorial, conservation, technology, and publications departments. This has truly been an unprecedented collaborative effort at the Art Institute, for having art historians, scientists, computer techies, and editors all at the same table was an extraordinarily new experience for us. Since then, we've added many more departments and individuals to our team from inside and outside the Art Institute, and we've received critical additional support from the David and Mary Winton Green Research Fund, the Crest Foundation, and the Mellon Foundation. One of the relationships we formed was particularly fruitful. During our planning period, we decided to hire the IMA lab at the Indianapolis Museum of Art to be the computer programmers who helped us realize an innovative open source interface for our online catalog. I'm proud to say that the Getty was so impressed with the prototype and the software package that the Art Institute developed with IMA Lab that they granted additional monies to IMA Lab for the creation of a vanilla version of it called the OSCE Toolkit, to be available not only to the other institutions participating in OSCE, but also to the world. Currently, anyone can download the OSCE Toolkit software for free and create a digital book similar to the one that I'm going to present to you today. A primary reason the Art Institute was challenged to undertake this project is because we have an exceptional tradition of publishing scholarly collection catalogs, like Martha Wolf's recent Northern European and Spanish paintings before 1600 in the Art Institute of Chicago. Martha's book exemplified for us what the core elements of a scholarly catalog from the Art Institute should be. The content should include a curatorial essay and technical scientific notes, which are fully footnoted and edited. It should present an object's detailed provenance, exhibition history, and bibliography, in addition to making available large color plates, technical images, comparative illustrations, and detail images. From the beginning of our design process, we've been dedicated to keeping the same content, audience, and mission for the online catalog as the same as the printed publication. But as Nina asked me in preparation for this talk, why did we pick Monet and Renoir to be our first online catalogs? While we've done extensive technical studies on some of our 19th century pictures, it's only been in the context of exhibitions, like our 2004 exhibition on Seurat's Le Grand Jet. We've never undertaken a systematic examination of our 19th century works of art, one of the most popular areas of our collection. It was slated to be one of the next scholarly collection catalogs on the museum's publication docket, but perhaps even more critical was the fact that with this area of the collection, we had the benefit of being at a point where we needed to do all new research. So we were free to think about expanded categories of research and gather that information from the very beginning of our work on the prototype for the catalog. So essentially, we had a blank canvas. In order to tackle our large 19th century collection, we decided to divide the works up into a number of series. A benefit of publishing online is that sections can be published as they are available. So we conceived of having a series called Works by the Impressionist Circle in the Art Institute of Chicago, and within that series there will be 14 discrete volumes that will each be published online upon their completion. But the challenge, of course, was much more than this. We also had the task of developing the technological tool to relay this information. So how did we go about doing this? When we hired IMA Lab to help our technologists develop our dream software, we could have just given them the content of an entry and let them run to implement all of the fancy-dancy bells and whistles in the digital realm. But the content producers, the art historians, the conservators, the conservation scientists, and editors stayed integral to the design development process. And without our cumulative input, we never would have come up with the prototype that we have today. I use the term ethnographic design here because we took the time to have the technologists study the behavior and the activities of the producers and researchers of the catalog. We wanted to show the technologists the experiences that can't be captured in a printed book, specifically how we research, the research resources and tools we use, and how we write. This allowed us to discuss ways in which the digital medium could help us to recreate and deliver the experience of the curators and conservators working collaboratively during the research process. But we also highlighted issues that we felt were critical to us as the ideal consumers of the book. So that's precisely where we took them. We stepped back from the computer, we completely turned it off, and we presented to the technologists how we as researchers use books. We also conveyed the fundamental experiences that we did not want to lose in the transition from print to digital. For example, how would we deal with the fact that we would lose the tools that traditionally help us navigate a book? The idea of literally losing our thumbs, sticky notes, and other physical bookmarking tools was quite honestly terrifying to us. The research team spent many hours over the course of about a year and a half brainstorming what we wanted our digital catalog to do for us and for other researchers and scholars. We stayed true to the idea that the facts of research are the same as they always have been, but of course our mission was to acknowledge that the way people use and find information is different in the digital format. We were also certain to reflect upon our cumulative experiences as everyday amateur users of the internet, and reflected upon our frustrations and moments of wonder with the platform. So in designing our prototype, the Art Institute's goal was to embrace the appropriate capabilities of the web without leaving behind the weight and authority naturally ascribed to the printed book format. As a team, we discussed the design principles we felt were critical for a scholarly catalog, even though some of these concepts seem to be antithetical to the digital medium. The content was to be scholarly and edited, the book had to be citable and stable, and we had to incorporate footnotes. We also wanted to retain the look and feel of a book so that it would be accepted in the scholarly community. We were very concerned with navigation issues and wanted to be sure that our readers did not get lost in the publication. All too often, we had experienced websites which made us click to find supplemental information, leading us down a rabbit hole that made us lose our place in the original text. Thus, we wanted sufficient navigation tools, as well as sophisticated ways to present comparative illustrations. We wanted the publication to work on multiple digital devices, and we also wanted our readers to have the opportunity to create marginalia in their own personalized copy of the catalog. It was also important for us to create a back-end system that would allow for traditional book producers, the authors, editors, and other non-technologists, to create these digital publications. And we wanted the design to be flexible enough so that future authors might be able to customize their own publication while still using the core OSCE toolkit. When we worked with IMA Lab, we dialogued about these concerns, our ideal scenarios, and how we might treat certain types of content in a print publication. They would come up with possible solutions that we would further hone together. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. But the point is that the design principles were informed by our research team, those who exemplified the types of people we actually wanted to use this publication. So now I want to take you through some of the screenshots of the skeleton of one of our prototype entries. It's rather difficult to present the prototype in a linear way because, of course, there are some inherently nonlinear aspects to it. I want you to remember this is an online catalog. It's not an app or a PDF. All that's required from the reader's computer is that there's an internet connection and that you have the most up-to-date versions of Chrome or Safari. It's certainly more effective to demonstrate online, but for the ease of presentation here, I'm going to show you screenshots today. So here I'm showing you the first page of our entry for our Monet painting, Cliff Walk at Pourville. You see the large plate image of the object in question, and I just wanted you to take a quick, if you can see, just take quick note of this woman's hat here. You also see its tombstone information and the beginning of the curatorial essay, which has been edited by our publications department and will be peer-reviewed by an eminent scholar in the field. When we advance to the next page, note the book moves horizontally like a print book. We can advance forward and backward by clicking the arrows at bottom right. On there. Comparative illustrations are in line and can be 1 or 2 columns depending on the preference of the editor or the author. The technical report immediately follows the curatorial essay. And without the confines of the printed page, we can take the reader through an expanded and enhanced presentation of the physical properties of our works of art. For example, here you see information on the signature, support, and preparatory layers. And there is narrative content on the paint layers and artist revisions. As you have probably already noticed, we have the luxury of using many more comparative illustrations than we could in a print publication, including very high resolution details of parts of the work. And here at bottom right is a photo micrograph of the woman's hat that I asked you to take note of in the overall plate image. And you can see it's incredible. You kind of want to lick it. And we can even include these beautiful images of cross-sections of the paint and ground layers. At the end of the report, there's information on the painting's current and historical frames, if known, a summary of the work's conservation history and its current condition, and then we move into the art historical documentation of the object with fully footnoted provenance, exhibition history, and selected references. We list other archival documentation we have gathered, like early dealer information and a full accounting of the labels on the verso. And we end with a description of the examination and analysis techniques that we used in the research. And finally, we end with a comprehensive list of historical images of the painting from the archives of the Art Institute. So now that we've taken a quick trip through the skeleton of an object entry, I want to take you through some of the solutions that we implemented to address the team's requirements, which I outlined earlier. We'll take a look through another sample entry that we have completed, Monet's Beach at San Andres. It was critical for us that the book be a citable and stable entity on the web so that future researchers could comfortably cite the catalog as an authoritative source and know that the content that they've cited will never disappear, change, or be unrecoverable. To this end, each volume will have a unique ISBN. Also, our online catalogs will not be continually updated. They will be treated like revised editions of a printed book. As information changes on these paintings, we will store it for a future edition of the publication. All editions of the book will have persistent links from the Art Institute's website and will be cataloged in databases like WorldCat. We've implemented features to encourage people to cite the catalog properly as opposed to copying and pasting text without feeling the need to credit it. When you click the mouse to try to copy text, you are welcomed with this lovely little cite icon. And upon clicking this icon, you're immediately directed to the formatted bibliographic citation for the book in Chicago or MLA style, and it's from this window that you can then copy text. You can see here that the publication date is 2011, which is when we published this trial entry online. This version will always remain accessible, but when we publish the Monet volume next June, this entry will be republished, and citations from that catalog will include a publication date of 2014. Our catalog is fully footnoted. If you click on one of the footnotes, a drawer at the bottom will open, and you can scroll through the footnotes if you like by advancing the arrows here. And clicking on the number in the footnote here will take you directly to the place in the text where that footnote is referenced. So footnotes are always easily accessible to the reader, but you can also tuck them away so you don't have to see them all the time. Reader experience was a very important concept for us, and while we wanted to distinguish our publication from an average collections website and keep it based on the fundamental principles of a printed book, of course, part of our mission was to enhance the reader experience by utilizing features of the digital medium. The table of contents was one of these critical components we wanted from a print publication, but that could be used to give the reader options for experiencing the book differently. If you click on the table of contents tab at the upper left-hand side of the screen, up here, the table of contents will open in a drawer similar to that which we've used for footnotes. We use the table of contents as a tool for multiple functions. It gives the reader the layout of the book as the authors have conceived it, but it allows the reader the flexibility to enter into the book in different ways. The reader can choose to advance through the book page by page via the arrows at right, which we've seen before, down here. Or they can jump to specific sections of interest by clicking on the section in the table of contents bar which might interest them. And of course, by using this drawer tool, the table of contents is always accessible and it always can disappear too. In developing the catalog, we were very concerned that our readers have a sense of where they are physically in the catalog. With a print publication, you're always aware of how much is left to be read in the book because you can physically see your progress. You hold the book, you can put your bookmark in it, and you can easily see how many pages are left. You may have noticed as we flip through that the bar along the bottom advances as you move through the entry, so this bar here. This is our attempt at giving the reader that kind of grounding at the entry level. We were also very concerned about access to the main plate image. We didn't want to force the reader to click back to the first page to access the image of the main object. Again, with a print publication, you have the benefit of thumbs or bookmarks to aid in flipping back and forth between text and image. To this end, we wanted an ever-present image of the object under discussion, which always appears at upper right, way over here. And if you click on it, the enlarged image opens in a new tab. And you can see at the top, you have the opportunity to toggle back and forth in the browser, or you can open the plate image in a new window so that you could read the text and have the plate image side by side. And what's even cooler is that these are very high resolution images, and you can zoom in on the plate image to see extraordinary detail. It may be difficult to see in this slide, but this rubber band tool up here at top right allows you to know where you are in the overall picture if you're zoomed in very close. So you might be able to see that little tiny red rectangle there, and that's where we're looking in the overall picture. So once again, it's one of these tools to ground the reader in the image. Other elements of the catalog follow the same principle. In the exhibition history section, for example, we've digitized some of the early Art Institute exhibition catalogs and have made them available for the reader to access. If you click on one of these publications, it will open up in a new tab or window, once again, so you don't lose your place in the original text. And so it's always there so where you were is always there when you toggle back. In the same spirit of making sure that the reader is not diverted to another part of the catalog for further information, we realized that we needed to change some elements of our standard writing and formatting style that have come about because of the need to be conservative in print publications. As you can see in this example here at bottom left, the Art Institute's standard provenance style incorporates semicolons to mean a direct transfer of ownership and periods to indicate gaps in provenance. Taking a note from the Columbia Guide to Digital Publishing, we realized that it was important for us to take meaning out of punctuation as much as possible. We did not want to send the reader off into the wild to figure out some kind of special punctuation or code. And so we're trying to be very explicit now and writing it out longhand. So for example, I've translated the provenance at left into our new style for the Monet and Renmore catalogs, and you can see it's a much more narrative provenance. For the same reason, we've also decided to eliminate any short forms in our image captions and footnotes. We don't want to force the reader to go to a bibliography or into the main text to get the full information for a citation or a comparative illustration. This will also be beneficial if a reader stumbles across an image in our catalog through some random internet search. Since every image will be fully captioned with the artist's name, title, date, and collection, even if this creates redundancy within the catalog, that reader will not have to go further to identify what the image is that they're looking at. With the digital medium, the illustrations that we can include are endless, and this is both a luxury and a curse. We originally planned to include images of everything in our archives and every photo that conservation took, which typically averaged about 100 images per painting. But we stepped back from that since we wanted this to be a carefully crafted book and something that was easy to read. Of course, we also recognize the incredible amount of manpower that it would take to implement this. So we chose to limit our selection, but we still include many more images than we could in a print publication. Since we were already acquiring so many images during our research process, we also didn't want the reader to not have a lot of that raw data that may not have informed our story, but might be helpful for researchers across the world. So we figured out a way in which we could prioritize images. As you've seen in previous slides, some can be in line with the text, but as you can see here, many are just actually called out from the text. So for example, if you click on this particular figure call out in the labels section, you get an enlarged image of that label. Or alternately, you can view it in the drawer at the bottom of the screen, similar in a way similar to how we view the footnotes. This allows us to illustrate more images without having them all in line in the essay and overwhelming the reader. You can scroll through the images, and clicking on the chain link will take you to the place in the text where the image is discussed. So this allows for the reader to enter into the book in a different way. We also have a lot of images and archival material that pertain to collectors who are very important to the Art Institute. In these cases, we chose to make a special collector page section. So if you click on the credit line in the tombstone information in this entry, you get taken, again in a separate window, so you don't lose your place, to an area where we show rich photographs and biographies of these important collectors. And you can see the painting that we're talking about now is here in this photo. It's a lovely historical context. And we also have, in addition to a list of works that the collector has given to the museum. But we felt it was critical to incorporate up front and center a lot of the new technical imaging that we did during the course of the research. We also wanted to try to recreate an interactive experience with the technical images and try to replicate for the reader the experience of being in the conservation lab with conservators and curators. We were able to accomplish this with our interactive image viewer that always appears at the beginning of the technical report. So this is the image here that we're talking about. As I will show you, it allows our readers to play with the technical images and to test out our hypotheses. The default image will always appear as the natural light image with these red annotations that outline some of the main features of the final composition. And as you'll see, this is yet again another grounding tool to know where you are in the final composition. But with this slider tool at the bottom here, the reader can choose which technical lights they might want to compare, and they can also turn on and off various other annotation drawings. So I'm going to show you a short film. Of course, being online would be a much better experience here, but I'm going to show you a short film that illustrates the kinds of technical revelations we experience in the conservation lab and how the reader can use our interactive image viewer to encounter the magic of these revelations as well. So here you can see that the reader has chosen the natural light image on one end of the slider and the X-ray image on the other end of the slider. So she uses the slider to transition between the two so she can see the painting under different percentages of light. She turns on the annotations that outline what appears in the transmitted infrared imagery. She then slides over to it from the X-ray, and she zooms in at upper right, and you see that same rubber band tool appears to locate her within the painting. She changes one end of the viewer to be the natural light image, and she slides back to it to investigate further investigate the changes. Developing a tool like this was no small task. Because the technical images are captured by our conservators and scientists with different cameras at different resolutions under different conditions, and are sometimes mosaics composed of many, many different source images, there are misalignments that occur between images when they're overlaid by hand. Tests with existing open source image alignment software proved inadequate for our purposes, so we've worked with John Delaney, senior imaging scientist at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, to use an automated program specifically developed for museum imaging needs. This program simultaneously composites and registers multiple images of the painting based on certain anomalies in the paint surface, like paint cracks. A big concern, especially for our technologists, was that the catalog worked across platforms. We have incorporated a responsive design so that the text automatically rewraps when you change the size of your screen, so the catalog can be viewed on digital devices of all sizes. So this film clip shows how the entry responds from going to 2 columns to 3 columns. Also note how the bar at the bottom changes scale as you are able to fit more information on the page. It was because of this elastic quality to the design that we could not use page numbers, so we've opted to use paragraph numbers for citation purposes. So that's how one would cite this section of the catalog. An additional feature we've incorporated to enhance reader experience is the ability to create personalized copies of the publication. After a reader creates a login, they can easily add their own sticky notes and tags and mark up the copy just like they would in their own print publication. As I've shown, we were very concerned with the reader experience during the software development process. However, it was critical for us, too, to think about the comfort level of the producers of the book. I know this slide is rather boring, but that's actually precisely the point. By using open source software, we had the IMA lab create a back-end interface that is very simple and doesn't require a degree in computer programming or web design to input content and create this catalog. Authors still use Microsoft Word and its footnoting tool. The editors can then cut and paste from Word into the back end of our interface, and the footnotes from Word automatically get written into the necessary computer code. So, as I've circled here, that will automatically input from Microsoft Word. You can also see here that we've chosen to use very, very minimal fielded data, and by using primarily unfielded text boxes, a writing or formatting style is not forced upon the author. There's still a number of elements that we're continuing to work out before we publish our Monet and Renoir volumes next June. We're honing our powerful search feature that searches for terms in the entire catalog, as well as for terms in one's own personal notes. And of course, this replaces the traditional index in a print publication. This is a mock-up of how we anticipate the search result screen will look. We're also developing a glossary of technical terms used in the catalog. This is, once again, a tool to help the reader approach and understand the research as we do. Printability has been a huge question for people when they see our prototype. Since we hope that people will actually read the catalog online, this was not a top priority for us, but rest assured, you will be able to print out a stripped-down version of the catalog text with images at the end. You'll also be able to print out your personalized notes from your own copy. As we learned in this first phase of our online scholarly project, we probably won't know many of the challenges until we hit them head on. Some of the challenges, however, that we can already anticipate are content production. This kind of research takes an enormous amount of time and resources, and we're an institution which has many, many projects ongoing simultaneously. But also in its current form, the OSCE catalog and CITI, our museum collection management database, do not currently speak to each other. Our programmers at the museum are working on making them compatible so that we do not have to physically input information from the OSCE catalog into our collections database and website. Ideally, we will be able to create a kind of publishing ecosystem where all of this data can work to inform our process not only for doing research, but also for making labels, gallery texts, and interactives, and other museum education needs and programming. And of course, these kinds of issues feed into the larger challenge of the digital humanities in general. Another challenge will be the incorporation of sculpture and three-dimensional objects into the OSCE catalog. The Gauguin volume will be our first impressionist catalog to incorporate 3D objects. So we're just in the early stages of discussing how we might present items like our Gauguin vase from 1886-87 at top left, and our 1888 cabinet carved by Gauguin and Émile Bernard at bottom left. These issues are beginning to be worked out in OSCE catalogs being developed in other areas of the museum, particularly for our Roman collection. One idea we will implement is 360-degree photography. At right is an example of the 360-degree photography we've done of one of our Roman vessels. And again, I have a little film. Essentially, the object is placed on a turntable and 72 images of the object are captured. You can see how the viewer will have control to rotate the object. But this is another example of where we will need the help of computer programmers. Currently, this type of media is not yet able to be incorporated into the OSCE toolkit. As we continue to dream, we will certainly continue to face challenges, but our audience so far has been very patient and very encouraging. Since we launched our prototype of 3 object entries in November 2011, we've received encouraging analytics. Of the almost 6,500 unique visitors to the site, we have had hits from 120 museums and cultural institutions, as well as 180 colleges and universities from 68 countries and 48 states. The fact that the average visit length has consistently remained over 10 minutes every month since launch has been an incredible statistic for us. When you think of how long you yourself spend on a website, I know I flip from website constantly. Probably I spend a minute per website. So we're thrilled that we are holding people's attention for this long. At the time we launched the prototype, we also distributed a survey of a targeted but broad group of people that included conservators, art historians, academics, librarians, and publishing professionals. We were very encouraged by the results, particularly from the academics that participated. The fact that all responding professors said that this kind of online publication would be a valuable addition to a tenure portfolio and that they would encourage their students to reference and cite our digital catalog was incredibly reassuring. We're also obtaining necessary institutional buy-in at the Art Institute. We currently have 10 OSCE catalogs in progress, some of which will be written by outside scholars. On the docket are 5 of the Impressionist Circle catalogs, as well as 5 others that will be overseen by other curators in the museum. Utilizing this platform as a viable method for distributing scholarly content on our permanent collection is increasingly becoming the norm at the Art Institute. The journey from print to digital at the Art Institute has been an exciting path, and it feels like we've only scratched the surface in terms of the kinds of research tools we can dream of and incorporate. What I've shown has resulted from hours and hours of conversations within the Art Institute, with the IMA Lab, and with other institutions. And we hope that these new research tools we've made available will encourage other institutions to start experimenting in the digital realm for their scholarly publications. The more we are all able to get our research and our raw data into circulation, the more we can cumulatively learn about the working methods of artists whose objects have found homes in museums and collections around the world. Thank you.